In the middle of a dusty attic in a quiet American suburb, a man was rummaging through a box of old trinkets from his childhood. He pulled out a small enamel pin, the kind people used to collect in the 80s. But when he looked at the face staring back at him, he felt a cold shiver. It was a bizarre, yellowish creature with wide, vacant eyes and a grin that didn't feel friendly. Below it, a single word was printed in a strange, blocky font. Gitas. He spent the next 6 hours searching every corner of the internet, but it was as if this creature had never existed. No movies, no books, no toy lines. It was a memory that belonged to no one. Yet here it was, cold and heavy, in the palm of his hand. Hi everyone. You're listening to Thousand Fragments. The moment no one saw. The memory no one kept. I'm bringing it back. Drop a comment below and let me know where you are today. I'm all ears. And let's begin. The year was 2017 when this unremarkable piece of metal was uploaded to a Reddit forum dedicated to non-existent media. The person who found it wasn't a paranormal investigator or a professional detective. He was just a regular guy who couldn't understand why a mass-produced item from the 80s had no digital footprint. Usually, if you find an old toy, a quick Google search gives you the manufacturer, the year, and the backstory. But Geddes was different. Geddes was a ghost. As the post gained traction, thousands of people joined the hunt. They searched library archives, scanned old newspapers, and reached out to veteran toy designers. Everyone had the same answer. I've never seen this thing in my life. For months, the mystery grew into an obsession for the internet. People started sharing sightings of Gitas in their own old boxes, but none of them could remember where they got it. It was like a shared hallucination. The artwork looked professional, almost like something from a Saturday morning cartoon or a fantasy novel. There was a whole cast of characters discovered later on a sticker sheet, including a dragon and various warriors. But they all lived under the banner of the Land of Ta. Yet, the Land of Ta didn't exist in any library or copyright office in the United States. The atmosphere on the forums shifted from curious to genuinely uneasy. How could something be manufactured, distributed, and sold across the country, only to be completely erased from human history? The turning point came when a persistent researcher followed a paper trail to a defunct company called Denison. They were known for making office supplies and stickers in the 80s. After weeks of dead ends, they finally tracked down a former employee who had worked in the art department 40 years ago. The researcher sat in anticipation, waiting for the revelation of a lost masterpiece or a secret project. But the answer he got was far more unsettling. The artist remembered the drawings, but he explained that they weren't part of a show or a book. They were just drawings. They had been sitting in a folder of unclaimed art for years until someone decided to print them on stickers just to fill space. There was no story. There was no world. Gitas was a character born from nothing, meant for nothing, and forgotten by everyone who created him. But that wasn't the end. The real twist happened when people started looking closer at the Land of Ta stickers. They noticed that the designs were strikingly similar to high-end fantasy art from the 70s, almost as if they were plagiarized from a much darker, much more serious source. When they finally found the original artist of those designs, he was just as confused. He had never heard of Gitas. He had never heard of Denison stickers. His art had been stolen, stripped of its meaning, and turned into a cheap consumer product that lived in the junk drawers of American families for 4 decades without a name. The climax of this search didn't end in a celebration. It ended in a strange, hollow realization. We live in a world where we think every piece of information is at our fingertips. We believe that if something was real, it must be on the internet. But Gitas proved us wrong. For 30 years, this creature existed in the physical world while being completely invisible to the digital one. It was a glitch in our collective memory. It was a reminder that there are thousands of stories, thousands of faces, and thousands of secrets that are currently sitting in boxes in our basements, waiting for someone to ask a question that has no answer. What makes this truly haunting is the thought of how many other characters are out there right now, staring at us from old stickers or forgotten toys, whose origins have been swallowed by time. Gitas wasn't a monster or a demon, but he represented the ultimate fear of the digital age, being completely and utterly forgotten. When we look at that strange, smiling face now, we don't see a toy. We see a mirror of a time before the internet, a time when things could exist in the shadows and stay there forever. And that was another story lost in time. But stay with me, because there's still more waiting in the shadows. What do you think? Is Gitas just a forgotten sticker? Or is there a reason why an entire generation seems to have a black hole in their memory regarding the land of Ta? Let me know in the comments. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? The idea that even after 40 years of silence, a lost voice can finally be found, and a mystery can have a happy ending. But on the internet, for every voice that is found, there is another that is losing its grip on reality. Because while some people use the digital world to preserve a memory, others use it as a final, desperate scream for help. And sometimes, that scream doesn't sound like a song at all. It sounds like a glitch. A repetitive, mechanical nightmare that proves the most terrifying mysteries aren't the ones we can't solve, but the ones where we watch a human being break apart one line of code at a time. In a matter of minutes, a normal conversation on one of the internet's largest gaming forums transformed into a digital nightmare. Thousands of identical comments began to flood the screen, scrolling so fast they looked like static. Each one contained the same nonsensical phrase: Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. As users refreshed their pages, the count went from hundreds to thousands, then tens of thousands. It looked like a massive bot attack or a sophisticated virus melting the servers. But as the investigators looked closer at the profile behind the chaos, they realized this wasn't a machine. It was a person, and they were watching someone's mind shatter in real time across the global network. Hi everyone, you're listening to 1,000 Fragments, the moment no one saw, the memory no one kept. I'm bringing it back. Drop a comment below and let me know where you are today. I'm all ears. And let's begin. The story centers around a user who had been a regular, helpful member of the Reddit community for a long time. This person was known for being articulate, kind, and deeply knowledgeable about classic video games. They lived a quiet digital life, participating in discussions and sharing advice with fellow enthusiasts. To the outside world, they were just another faceless avatar in the crowd. But behind the screen, in a small apartment somewhere in North America, a much darker reality was taking hold. For years, this individual had been struggling with a devastating, chronic illness that caused immense physical pain and neurological decline. As their body began to fail, their only escape was the digital world, where they could still be the person they used to be. Everything changed on a cold morning when a simple question about a game sparked a fire in this user's mind. At first, the response was normal, but then something snapped. Within a few hours, the user began to reply to every single comment with the same cryptic line about Ubisoft and DRM. Other users tried to intervene, asking if they were okay, but the only response was more repetition. The comments grew longer and more distorted. The user started uploading hundreds of images to a personal gallery, each one a horrific, distorted piece of digital art that seemed to mirror their internal agony. The internet sat in stunned silence as the helpful gamer they once knew evaporated, replaced by a wall of terrifying, mechanical text that wouldn't stop growing. The mystery took an even darker turn when people began to suspect that this wasn't just a mental breakdown. Some believed it was a secret experiment in artificial intelligence gone wrong. The sheer speed of the posts, sometimes hundreds per minute, seemed impossible for a human hand. Users began to theorize that the account had been hijacked by a rogue script or a dark web entity using the profile to test a new form of digital warfare. The tension was unbearable as people waited for the moderators to ban the account. But every time a thread was deleted, the user would reappear elsewhere, faster and more frantic than before. It felt like the entire platform was being haunted by a ghost that lived inside the code. But the mind-blowing twist was discovered years later by a group of dedicated internet historians who refused to let the story die. They didn't find a hacker or an AI. They found a series of journals and personal posts from the user's other hidden accounts. They discovered that the repetition wasn't a glitch, but a desperate, final attempt at communication. The user was suffering from a rare condition that made them lose the ability to form new thoughts, leaving them trapped in a loop of a single, obsessive idea. The glitch was a man's last cry for help before his mind completely shut down. The horrifying speed of the posts. It wasn't a bot. It was a man sitting at his desk for 20 hours straight, frantically copy-pasting his own torment because it was the only thing he had left. The climax of the story is the devastating silence that followed. After the explosion of text, the account went dark forever. The user didn't just leave the internet. He vanished from existence. His final posts weren't angry or violent. They were just sad. He talked about how the pain had become so great that he could no longer distinguish between the game world and the real world. He had become a part of the machine he was trying to critique. The internet had watched a human being dissolve into a series of broken links and repetitive strings, and by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was far too late to do anything but watch the screen turn black. Looking back on this, we are forced to confront the cold, clinical nature of our digital lives. We see thousands of comments every day, and we assume there is a person behind them. But we rarely stop to think about the weight of the hand that is typing. This user wasn't a monster or a virus. He was a man who lost everything to a disease and used the only platform he had left to scream into the void. It leaves you with a hollow feeling every time you see a repetitive bot or a strange glitch in a forum. You have to wonder, is that just a piece of bad code? Or is it someone out there, trapped in a loop, trying to tell us they are still alive? And that was another story, lost in time. But stay with me, because there's still more waiting in the shadows. What do you think really happened in those final hours? Was it a man losing his grip on reality? Or was the internet itself acting as a mirror for a pain that was too big for words to carry? Let me know in the comments. It's unsettling to think that a physical object like a Gita's pen could exist for decades without a single trace in the digital archives. It's like a hole in our collective reality. But what if it wasn't a physical object? What if the thing that shouldn't exist was a sound, a melody that millions of people heard, but no one could claim? Because as strange as a forgotten character might be, it's nothing compared to the 40-year manhunt for a voice that seemed to come from a ghost. A voice that led the internet down a rabbit hole into the heart of the Cold War. In 1984, a teenager in West Germany pressed the record button on his cassette deck to capture a song playing over the radio. It was a moody, dark, post-punk track with a deep voice and a haunting synthesizer melody. For nearly 40 years, that tape sat in a box, a fleeting moment of audio frozen in time. But when he finally tried to find out who wrote it, he discovered something terrifying. The radio station had no record of it. The DJ didn't remember it. Even the world's most advanced song identification algorithms returned nothing but silence. It was a song that, according to every official record on the planet, simply did not exist. Hi everyone, you're listening to Thousand Fragments. The moment no one saw. The memory no one kept. I'm bringing it back. Drop a comment below and let me know where you are today. I'm all ears. And let's begin. The story starts in a small, cramped bedroom in the mid-80s. In a world before the internet, if you heard a song on the radio that you loved, you had to hope the DJ announced the name at the end, or you had to go to a record store and hum the melody to a clerk. This young man was a dedicated fan of underground music. He would spend hours waiting for the perfect track to record onto his mixtapes. One afternoon, a song came through the speakers that felt different. It was melancholic, professional, and sounded like a hit. He labeled the tape with a question mark and moved on with his life. Decades passed. The wall fell. The world went digital. And that cassette tape remained tucked away in a drawer, holding a secret that would eventually launch the largest collective manhunt in the history of the internet. In 2007, the man's sister decided to upload a snippet of the song to a few music forums, thinking someone would identify it in minutes. Instead, the internet hit a brick wall. Music experts, historians, and collectors from every continent weighed in, but no one had a lead. As the years rolled by, the search moved to Reddit, where thousands of users began a process called deep combing. They contacted every radio station in northern Germany. They tracked down aging DJs who had worked during the Cold War. They even used artificial intelligence to isolate the singer's accent to see if he was from Berlin, London, or maybe even behind the Iron Curtain. But the mystery only deepened. The more people listened to the lyrics about the wind and the shadows, the more it felt like the song was a message from a ghost. The conflict reached a fever pitch when theories started to take a darker turn. Some believed the song was never meant to be heard by the public. They whispered that it might have been a coded signal used by intelligence agencies during the height of the Cold War, disguised as a pop song to communicate with agents in the field. Others thought it was a glitch in the simulation, a piece of media that had slipped through the cracks from a parallel reality. The frustration was palpable. How could a high-quality, studio-produced song with professional mixing just vanish from history? There were no copyright filings, no publishing credits, and no one claiming the royalties for what was becoming one of the most famous songs in the world. It was the ultimate digital void. The mind-blowing twist finally arrived just recently, in late 2024. After 17 years of searching, a researcher wasn't looking at music charts or radio logs. He was looking at old, grainy photographs of a local band competition from a tiny town in Germany. He noticed a group of young men in the background of a photo, and something about their gear looked familiar. He tracked down a member of a long-forgotten band called Keel. When he asked the man about the song, the man paused, a look of pure shock crossing his face. He hadn't heard that recording in 40 years. He revealed that they had recorded the song in a tiny studio, pressed a handful of copies, and then the band simply broke up. They had moved on to normal lives as technicians and office workers, completely unaware that millions of people across the globe were obsessed with their teenage art. The climax of the mystery was a beautiful, overwhelming moment of realization. This wasn't a spy code or a supernatural glitch. It was a human story about the fragility of our legacy. The song was titled Subways of Your Mind. For 40 years, the creators thought their work had vanished into the ether, while the world thought the work was a spectral mystery. The two finally met in a digital explosion of relief and nostalgia. It proved that in our hyper-connected age, the things we lose aren't always gone forever. They are just waiting for the right person to look in the right basement, under the right pile of old photographs. Reflecting on this, you have to wonder about the silence. We live in a time where we believe everything we do is being tracked, recorded, and stored in the cloud. But here was a masterpiece that lived only on a single strip of magnetic tape in a box for 4 decades. It makes you ask yourself, what else have we forgotten? How many other voices are currently trapped on old tapes or in the memories of people who think no one cares?
The most mysterious song on the internet wasn't just a puzzle to be solved. It was a reminder that the most profound things in life are often the ones that almost slipped away.
It was a triumph of human curiosity over the cold silence of time. And that was another story lost in time. But stay with me, because there's still more waiting in the shadows. What do you think? Does the fact that we found the creators make the song less special? Or does it make the mystery even more incredible because of how close we came to never knowing the truth? Let me know in the comments.